This is the Canon 800D, and it's nearly a decade old. Is it still worth it today? Let's find out. So let's get where this camera stands at and when it was released out of the way first. This was released in 2017, which means this was one of Canon's last attempts at making DSLRs. There was the Canon 850D, which came after it, but that was only released a year later. Now, this camera is from the 3-digit line. There was also a 4-digit line for cameras like the Canon 4000D and such. And there was also a two-digit line for cameras like the 80D and a single-digit line, which was the Canon 7D and the 7D Mark II. Now, these were all Canon's APS-C cameras. There were also full-frame cameras such as the 5D, the 6D and the 1D series, which are a lot more expensive than this one right now. But anyways, moving on to the sensor specs. This has a 24 megapixel sensor, which is capable of shooting up to 6 frames a second, and it goes up to ISO 25600. I find the images look quite good that come out of it, and the dynamic range is good enough. Now, in terms of video, this can do up to HD 60 frames per second in IPV or 30 frames per second also IPV. There is no option for all-eye, and that is a bit disappointing. Overall, the dynamic range in video is okay, but I would not recommend this camera for video. I think any mirrorless camera made after around 2020 should do good video, especially if it has log inside the camera. But if you do want those features, the price point will be a bit higher, around $800 AUD, instead of this camera is $500. In general, it's a pretty good experience shooting with it, whether for photos or for videos, and it's quite nice as a walk-around camera paired with the 50mm STM lens. Okay, let's talk about autofocus and live view mode on the Canon 800D. Now, it has cross-type autofocus points, 45 of them to be exact, in the viewfinder, as well as 45 with the dual pixel AF in live view mode. Now, I would say the autofocus performance of both live view mode and through the viewfinder to be pretty similar, and I wouldn't exactly use one over the other. Although the live view mode does have slightly larger coverage compared to the viewfinder. Now, compared to the autofocus on the Sony a6000, which this is a major rival to, I'd say the autofocus on the a6000 is slightly better. It just sort of picks out what I want to shoot and what I would have chosen if I was manually focusing, and it chooses that. As well, it has a lot more autofocus points, pretty sure 179 compared to this camera's 45. However, having said that, I wouldn't exactly say that the autofocus of this camera is a lot worse than the a6000's. It's a bit worse, but this camera can still have good autofocus and it generally performs well. It just isn't as accurate at choosing out what I would like it to choose as the Sony. Now, about live view mode, it's pretty good, it's generally reliable, and the only wish or concern I have about it is that I wish it was also in the viewfinder like I've gotten used to in mirrorless cameras, like the Sony a6000. Now, the reason I wish there was live view mode in the viewfinder is that I generally like having live view mode better than an optical viewfinder, since it generally gives me more of an idea about my exposure and how my final image is going to be turning out, so that I can maybe change my composition to better suit the light in case there is bad light and the contrast is too high. Sometimes as well, I noticed that the camera has maybe the white balance set a bit cold or a bit warm while I'm in live view mode, and I can also change that easier if I do have access to it. Coming to you from a tree to talk about the body of the Canon 800D. And actually, I really like the body of it. It's very comfortable in my hands. Every button and dial feels like it's in the spot it should be. And I mean, there's nothing really to hate about it. The body is a touch small, and I wish there was another dial for the aperture or to set ISO. That would be really nice to have. But unfortunately we don't have that. And otherwise, everything seems very logical. The on-off video button, I really like the position of that because I can really quickly, just with my thumb, turn it on, turn it to video, whatever I want to do. The live view mode button, it's in a good place as well. Unlike the Canon 70D, which I am also going to be reviewing, the on-off switch is in the correct spot, not on the left-hand side. I can quickly shoot using it. And the card slot, it's really nice, although unlike the Canon 70D, it's not spring-loaded, so you kind of have to open it up with your thumb. It's not annoying though, you get used to it. And it's really easy to take out the card, unlike some cameras I've used before. The flash is in a logical spot, like every flash. It does have a flash, and it's rated up to 12 meters with it, but I wouldn't advise using it if you are going to be going seriously into flash photography. But for most people shooting with the kit lens, it should be enough. Another thing I also wish they included is a joystick for the autofocus controls, because controlling it by pressing this button and then choosing what you want and moving the autofocus points is quite annoying. Alternatively, they could have also done it where the D-pad turns off and it's used as a joystick instead. I think that's really my biggest complaints with it. Other than that, we have a nice flippy screen, which is relatively good resolution. I haven't had any issues with it. And the battery, we have an LPE17 battery, which I've now just lost. And yeah, that's about the extent of it. The viewfinder is a bit small, and what I've just noticed is when the battery's out of the camera, or the camera's off, it sort of makes everything out of focus. Even like in the middle, it's out of focus probably by using some sort of effect, or I'm not exactly sure how, but it's out of focus and it reminds you need to turn the camera on to actually shoot. So that's a nice feature, I guess, although it does make it hard to fiddle with the camera if you're just trying to not waste battery life and see interesting frames. Other than that, the body is nice. We have a tripod screw, of course, in a good position, relatively. Compared to the body of the Sony a6000, I would say this is a lot better ergonomically, but it is quite a bit larger, especially because of the mirror and the viewfinder in the middle. But I do prefer it to be like this if I'm going to take it more as a serious professional camera rather than a point and shoot experience, almost like what I've done with the Sony a6000 sometimes. Since that is so small, you can mount a small lens onto it and just keep it as a point and shoot almost experience. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention about the Canon 800D is that they really crippled the software with this camera. I mean, the hardware is really good, it takes really nice quality images, and they really got that right, but they decided to cripple the software on purpose to save the higher end models like the Canon 80D. Now, how'd they cripple it? Well, really basic menu system, not very many options, and problems you wouldn't even imagine. For example, the ISO. You can't go in between stops. It is full stop jumps only. So 100, 200, 400, 800, 1600, 3200, I could go on and on and on. But there is no 160, 320, stuff like that, which is really annoying. And I mean, for me, it doesn't impact it that much, but I wish they could just implement it because it's just a nicer experience. And well, they crippled it on purpose. They knew what they were doing and they had to protect their better cameras, so they just had to cripple this one with software. Now, that might not be important to someone who shoots in order, but like I said, I feel like this camera is more suited to beginners or hobbyists that want to take this photography up as a hobby or eventually go professional, unlike what I've noticed with the Sony a6000, which has all of these software features that the Canon lacks and is the exact same price and has slightly more autofocus points. Anyway, in terms of ports, we have a full-size HDMI as well as a USB-B. Don't quote me on that, I'm not exactly sure about it. But we also have a mic jack and a remote shooting jack, or where you can attach a remote to it so you can take images remotely. For example, when the camera's at a tripod and the exposure is set for a few seconds, so you don't accidentally shake the camera a tiny bit, because that does matter if you're at longer focal lengths. Compared to other options like the Sony and Nikon, the menu system is really good on this camera. It's very easy to navigate, although it is a tad bit basic since this is a more entry-level model. That's a small complaint, that you don't get the same level of customization as you do with, say, the Canon 70D. Otherwise, the button layout and the menu system is a lot better than Nikon and Sony from my experience. Did I shoot a rock? The kangaroos are staring at me. How? On to the conclusion. Is the Canon 800D worth $500 nearly 10 years later on? Well, I'd say it is, but there's a lot of competition to it. Simply, in isolation, this camera is really good for the price. I mean, $500 for a really good live view mode and just a very well built DSLR, that's a really good deal. But there's also some offerings from Nikon and from Sony. There's even cheaper alternatives that could be better for you from Canon. I mean, there's the Canon 70D, which is about $200 cheaper, maybe $100 depending on the prices for you. But it is more professional, although it does have a few drawbacks compared to this one. Which I'll talk about in a later video comparing the two. Now, let's see what other options you could have. You could have the probably Canon 5D Mark II or even Mark III if you're lucky. Those sometimes go for around the same price, but of course they won't have any of the newer features that this camera has. There's also the Canon 6D original as well as 70D, like I said. That's about all from Canon, but there's also Sony and Nikon. You have the Sony a6000 and maybe you can find a Sony a7 for a similar price, if not slightly more expensive, maybe Now, if I'm being honest, I wouldn't recommend the Sony A7 just because the autofocus on that isn't great, but that's a full frame option, so if you want to use full frame lenses, you have that as well. I think the main comparison though is between this and the Sony a6000. I think this camera is more oriented for people who want to take this as a hobby or actually use it, while the Sony a6000 might be more for those who want a small camera that they can just go out with and shoot without much hassle. And have a really compact body they can just take anywhere with them. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.